Come on in.
Okay.
All right. Check the time.
Quiet on set.
All right, John, come on in.
How are you doing?
Thanks so much for coming.
Absolutely.
Why don't you
Thanks
take the
for having
time?
me.
Why don't you take the time to introduce yourself?
My name is Jonathan Gardner. I'm 24 years old. I'm an actor out here in Chicago.
Awesome. Well, first and foremost, thank you for taking the time to come sit down with us for April Muse. On a personal note, obviously, I met you, I want to say about 2.5 years ago. You were one of the extras for our fight scene for You Can't Fight in Here, which is a DaVinci production. And that was kind of like my first introduction to you. And that was awesome to have you on set.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Recently, we also just had you this past Sunday filming a commercial for Mr. Greek Heroes. It's going to be on the Marquee Network. And it was my first time seeing you since then. So that was pretty dope, getting the chance to catch up a little bit.
Yeah, it was great to be. I was thinking back today about the first time we met at You Can't Fight in Here and getting hit by a pool stick. And
Yeah.
that was an experience. I remember the first time I had met all of you all and, getting the set. I remember you all, first of all, it was very efficient just in terms of the carpooling and everything. And I rode with some people who did not know before and ended up being like some executives that you all work with, like Louis. I met on the drive over to set. And then I remember getting in there and getting hit by a pool stick, and I was like, "This is just a fun time. This is great."
Oh, yeah.
And then Mr. Greek this past Sunday was loads of fun. I was just saying earlier that the hardest part was smelling food the whole day and not being able to eat it. But I love the way you guys work. It seems like, especially in you, Evan, Enzo, and Max, like you all seem to have your things that you are especially good at, and you guys contrast each other really nicely. And I think working on set with you, it was great to be able to see that dynamic like play out in person.
Well, the camera can't see me, but I'm blushing right now. Thank you for that, man. Thank you for
Absolutely.
that. But yeah, I want to talk about you, man. I want to talk about everything that encapsulates you as a person, as an actor. Thank you for the kind words, though. It really does mean a lot. I kind of start off all these interviews normally by asking the same question, which is, you as a person, as a creator, as an actor, if you could describe yourself in 3 adjectives, what would they be?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
I think the first that comes to mind is hardworking. I take when I decide I want to do something and I really care about something, I'm gonna grind and make sure I get that thing. Sometimes it doesn't look the way that I imagine it in my head to be, but I always feel like if I put the work in, that things will become clear as the work happens.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've taken that approach to acting, and I've taken that approach to life in general. People would probably say I'm a Capricorn, and I'm very much a Capricorn in the sense that like hardworking is one of my, core values. I'd say resilience is an adjective that I would attribute to myself. I've had to go through a lot in life, and I think being able to bounce back, being able to use any adversity to make myself stronger is something I really value. And I think, dang, now I'm already 2 in. I only get 1 more. I'd have to say gratitude is the last adjective. I don't know if that's an adjective to describe me. Gracious. I like to lead with kindness and thankfulness because at the end of the day, I'm just happy to be able to be alive, in good health, and able to do my work, but also just able to be around beautiful people doing the work. As I think about it, it's just like a list of things that I could say every day that I'm just thankful for. So graciousness is the last one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you seem to be radiating a very good attitude and approach to daily life, so it's awesome. Yeah,
I try.
I like those
try.
adjectives a lot. Actually, those are good. That was a good mix of words that you chose. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna give you a fun little question here.
Okay.
You're stuck on an island, and you only have 3 movies that you can watch for the rest of your life. What would those movies be?
Okay. One of my favorites recently has been The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
Nice.
It's a movie that's deeply touching to me and very personal, and I think that is one of them for sure. That if I need a good cry, that would be one of my go-to movies. Whew. I'd have to say, I need something with some action in there, something to keep me on my feet. Oh man. Watching a lot of TV shows, so I'm trying to think movie-based. You know what? Honestly, Fight Club is still up there as one of my favorites. It's one of those movies I like watch and I see something new every time. So I think that would be one that I bring with me. And ooh. Man, this is a good question. Oh man. So one I saw recently that I think I'd put up there just because it's present on my mind is Three Billboards Past Ebbing, Missouri.
Great movie.
Yeah, beautiful movie.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one of those that I think of when, like, I don't attribute one emotion to it because it makes you feel all the things.
Yeah.
So I think I'd put it up there too. If I was rehashing this, I'd probably choose 1 or 2 more lighthearted movies because watching those 3 movies on repeat might get me pretty depressed after a while.
Oh, yeah.
But those are the 3 I'd put up for now. Yeah.
Awesome. So why don't you explain to me your journey as an actor? Particularly, like, maybe start off with, like, at what point in your life did you know that acting is what you wanted to pursue?
Yeah. So I had an interesting journey with acting. I didn't find it at a young age. I never found myself pulled towards theater very much as a kid. I was like, I want to play basketball, I want to play soccer, I want to play, I was big into sports and I was a really active kid. But I loved movies. And around like 9th grade is when I was like, okay, maybe I need to start thinking about what I want to do when I go into college and what I want to major in. And I knew film was it for me, but I didn't know what in film. So in making that decision, I ended up going to DePaul and I chose to get a BA in film and television so that I could have a broad understanding and then possibly choose a concentration at some point throughout. I graduated in 2023, so COVID hit my freshman year going into spring break. Obviously, it threw a wrench into everyone's plans, including my own, and had this identity crisis of like, what do I really want to do? Because I still felt this thing of like, I'm working in film, I was PAing, I was working with a production manager as an intern. I was learning a lot about the industry, but nothing was really connecting with me. And someone suggested to me that I try acting. And it had been suggested to me before, but like I said, I wasn't really pulled towards it. So I decided to take this time when, it almost felt like you could make 10 false moves and it's not really gonna hurt you in the long run because we're almost in this limbo state with the pandemic. So a friend of mine, name drop I guess, a friend of mine, John Ballion, was filming something and he asked me to work behind the scenes and gave me a small part. It was like 1 or 2 lines. And then throughout filming, someone had to drop out the last day, and so I was given a bigger role in the film. I remember the first day of filming, when I was acting, I was like, oh, I like really like this. Like this is something I could see myself doing. And it helped that the work I was doing really aligned with stuff I was going through in my own life. And I remember the second day of filming was when I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. Like, there was just no other, I never had that feeling before as I did when I was locked in on set acting. So I was 21. I was a sophomore at DePaul, and I made the decision that this is what I wanted to do. And from there on, it was trying to figure out how to balance finishing my degree, because at first I was like, hey, Mom, Dad, I love acting. I want to drop out. I want to I want to go act. I want to go figure out how I can do this. And they, very gladly so, advised me to stay. And I'm glad they did too, because I wouldn't have met the people I did if I wasn't working through the film program. If I hadn't, I met directors, producers, I met you all, through that You Can't Fight in Here, because I knew other people who had been working on the set. It just gave me an opportunity to get into acting a different way than I would have expected. And so I did a lot of on-camera work while I was at DePaul. And then when I graduated, I felt like I had to earn my stripes. Like I wasn't really an actor yet. So I went straight into the service industry so that I didn't, go broke. And I used my time to apply to a conservatory program. And that's what I did for 5 months this past summer. And that really gave me the boost I needed to get into the industry. I've been very fortunate and lucky to have met a lot of people who've carried me and like given me advice that I wouldn't be here if it weren't for it. A lot of mentors that have helped me throughout my journey. And so that's a long-winded,
Yeah.
but that's how I got from, I guess, never touching acting or doing anything in acting before to finding that it is the main thing that I want to do. And I still hope to be behind the scenes. I still hope to produce one day. But while I have this fire in me kind of to do this, I want to use it and keep going with it. So,
Awesome. Yeah. And so that short film that you mentioned that you started off behind the scenes.
Yes.
And ended up through chance being more involved in front of the camera. What year was that, and what was the short film?
So the short film was called Parallel.
Okay.
And that was 2021, I believe.
All right.
Yeah. And so before I graduated, actually, somewhat after that, I worked with this woman, Mary Muniz, and she's a producer in Chicago, and I was an intern for her, production intern, and I came to her and I said, I would love to start acting. Like, I want to, and I know you probably hear that a lot, or a lot of people are like, this is what I want to do. But I told her I was willing to work for it. And she has been the person who still to this day, like if I need advice or a better understanding of how I need to be carrying myself in the industry, she's the person I go to. And I was fortunate enough last year to use some of the things she had given me to book a role in co-star role in Chicago Fire, and then a co-star role in The Shy, and then that helped me get my agents now at Great Talent Group, and I'm so thankful to have them because they are nonstop workers. They just keep going, and yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually, because I saw on your IMDb page that you were in The Shy and Chicago Fire. What was it like being on those sets? Because obviously I feel like from student films to like high-end like production value of like something like Chicago Fire, like explain that. What was that like being on those sets?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was super surreal, just because especially growing up watching like things like SVU, and then just being in that environment was kind of like, whoa, this is this is weird to see how the sausage gets made. But it was super cool. For Chicago Fire especially, it was a different type of thing. It was smaller. I played a teammate, and my teammate had basically had a collision with another teammate or the other team, and he had a sudden cardiac arrest. And so my part was just consoling my teammate and then explaining to the firefighter what had happened. We ran this thing a lot. It was super small scene, but it took about six hours, and my whole day was about 8 hours. And we started bright and early, 6 a.m. call, and they really pamper you. And it's like, they brought breakfast to my trailer and stuff. I got a trailer. I mean, it was like a closet size, but it was still pretty cool. And then they had to shave my little peach fuzz of a mustache, make me look like a high schooler. And it was cool seeing them work, because all of the actors and the people, everyone behind the scenes, the director, everyone they were so efficient. You could tell they've done this thousands of times, and it just was easy for them. The actors barely needed any time to just drop into their circumstances and go. The director was on it. When he needed to talk to us, he did, but otherwise he was dealing with everything else he had to be dealing with. So yeah, it was a surreal experience. But then The Shy was on a bigger scale, because I played a gospel singer, and I was lip syncing the whole time. I was lip syncing. I'm not even gonna act like I wasn't.
Yeah.
And it was like in a mega church, basically. And it was weird because we're up on this stage. We have like all these dancers behind us. It was like me and 2 other singers, and then like the crowd was actually filled as if it was a church. So it was almost I didn't even have to psych myself out as much of like actually feeling like I had to act, because they do so much to make it feel real, that it really is. So that was a different experience, but it was cool. Yeah.
And in terms of like the timeline of your acting career, when did both of those roles take place?
So this was last February. So last January, I auditioned for last January, I auditioned for a Chicago Fire, and a week later, they said that I got it, and that I had a fitting that week, and then I had an audition for The Shy that same week, and then I shot Fire the next week, and then I booked The Shy that same week that I shot Chicago Fire. So it was very
wow,
back-to-back situation. Again, I was very fortunate, because in the acting world, there's so much based on chance. For it to be 2 roles that fit my description, and then for me to be able to book both of them was very fortunate circumstances.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was back to back with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you gave a very emotional performance in the short film Behind His Eyes, which I watched clips that I could find, and it was a very emotional performance. And I found out also that won an Emmy award.
Yes,
as well,
yes,
like
it
a
did.
Chicago Midwest Emmy award, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So explain that process of shooting that short film.
So that one was I actually found the casting through Backstage. A lot of the work I had been doing, in trying to earn my stripes and in trying to do as much work as possible, I was just on Backstage submitting for things as much as I could. And Jaden Wilson was the director of that. She's was at Columbia College. And when I found that role in that, I believe she actually requested that I audition for it. And it was one of those things, I'd say that one of the biggest things I look for in a project, and the projects I want to be part of, are things that I would have wanted to see as a young man, see someone like me portrayed as. And that was one of those films where I read it and I was like, this is deeply meaningful and something that I would want a younger version of myself or like my younger cousins or family to see. So it was a no-brainer in terms of deciding to do it. And then the whole process was, again, she was very efficient, very professional. A lot of the people working on the film were from Colombia. They did their own music for that film. You know, art design, like everything was through these people at Columbia. And for me, it was very, and it's kind of the weird part of the acting process is like, I get the audition, do the audition, I kind of let go of it after that because if I don't get it, you know, I'll just be ruminating in my head and possibly never hear a response. But I ended up booking it, and then we ended up shooting within a week or two after that. And then, I mean, we shot over the course of 3 days, and then that was it. You know, I got to see the screening a few months later, and Jaden was like, you know, we got some stuff in the works, but she couldn't really disclose a lot to me. So it was another moment of like, okay, let it go a little bit. And then she texted me maybe like a year later and was like, we're nominated for an Emmy. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, well, you're nominated for an Emmy is what you mean. Like, cause yeah, she won in the short section of student film in the Midwest. So it was just surreal getting that text and like finding that out. And then she ended up winning. And it was amazing to just be a part of something that went from, you know, just the writing on the page to, you know, showing up at an award show. And I know she's still taking it around to different festivals and everything. And I know that process has to be tough, but yeah.
I like what you said about the idea of you went in for 3 days, you filmed it, and then you just let it go.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that benefits you as an actor when you go on set, you do what you know you got to do, and then you just let it go? Explain that process to me.
Yeah. So I feel like it does a few things. It's like almost a form of protecting yourself a little bit. Because if you hold on to things for too long, then you start to drive yourself crazy, you know? And I think it's with art in general. You know, you have to have the willingness to know that whatever is happening in this moment right now is the important thing. But you can't hold on to what you did in that moment because it's over and you're not gonna get it back. And if you're too worried about how you're gonna do it or what's gonna happen, then you're not gonna be proud of it. You're gonna look back and you were in your head the whole time, so do you really know what happened in the moment? I feel like it's a way of just being present. By letting something go, by letting moments go, it helps you be more present in the moment. Yeah, and I think, like I said, protecting yourself, because as artists, we're kind of fending for ourselves. You know, if you're lucky, you have a community of people who do have your back, but it's still it's very vulnerable. As an actor especially, like, it's vulnerable to show these emotions that most people keep very close. And then to have people watch that on repeat. And so by letting it go, I feel like it helps you be comfortable with yourself and whatever decisions you did make in that moment.
So for the role of your character in Behind His Eyes, what were some of like the things that you did in preparation for an emotional role like that? Like, were there any certain emotions that you tapped into? Like explain that.
Yeah, so the role for Behind His Eyes was about this high school student, and it's right before graduation. The film starts where, you know, he's trying to decide what he wants to do whether he wants to go to college or not. And all the students in his class are assigned this essay, and it's worth something crazy, like 90% of their grade. So this essay is what their grade is riding on, basically. And the essay is asking them, like, what drives them. And you get the sense that this character is someone who hasn't really had to ask internal questions like that. Hasn't really had to delve into himself and figure out what motivates him. And I related to that in a personal sense. So I think a lot of preparing the role was kind of reaching into that for me. I think it's like, it's a few things. Like, as a black man moving through the world, sometimes it's very, I know that I have to do certain things in order to survive. And I think for me especially, or at least the experience I've had, is it's easier to follow the rules and just do the things that I see work, as opposed to break outside of the mold of what's expected. And I believe that I connected with this character because of that. He's someone who keeps his head down and works because he's scared. So I think there was a lot of fear in those emotional moments of not being ready to face the world on his own, because he's felt like he's been alone his whole life. I think it was a lot of fear, and because, you know, in film and in stories, we show the stuff that we wish we could do in our own lives and the ways we wish we could be in our own lives. There was also a lot of comfort in being able to finally release these emotions. So a lot of times when I'm preparing for a role, I like to focus on, like, it's nice, obviously. I think the best thing to do is know the scope. So know where I'm going with this, and what the intention is. And I've heard people say it before, it's kind of remembering and then forgetting, and then choosing to forget. And I think that works in the technical sense of, like, lines, so you're not training yourself how to say it a certain way. But it also works in the sense of, like, the range of emotions you'll feel through a scene. I mostly am going to focus on how I feel at the top of that scene and not even think about where I'm going with it, because we'll get there. And then through direction and the vision of the director, that's how it kind of finds its way to that point, however they hope to see it. I've had directors ask me, and I've had Jaden ask me this, like, what do you look for in a director? Or what do you consider to be good directing? I feel like a director's job is very intense, and it involves a lot of things. You have to be worried about how things look, as well as how things sound, as well as how the range of what they are dealing with is not more or less than what the actor is dealing with, but it is kind of a bigger range. And so I know that their job of directing me is only an aspect of their job. So I don't necessarily look for a bunch of things from a director, but decisiveness is in my opinion, the most important thing, because as long as they know what they want from me, I can do my best to try to give them that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any areas within your respective craft that you wish to improve upon?
Oh man, yes. I definitely have some things that I know I'd like to work on. It really is hard to, like, give a catch-all answer to that, because every role is so different and every set, every experience is going to be so different. But one big thing for me was because I didn't start acting at a young age, I haven't touched the theater scene yet. I'm gonna be doing that the first time coming up this summer, but just to be in theater is kind of my goal right now, because I feel like that is the playground for an actor. It's the place where I can kind of explore my range and just my what I'm able to do out there, and learn from the people who really do this thing, who have been doing it for decades. I'd say that, like, if I were to give one specific answer, it's getting more in tune with how my body is being presented for a given part. So we all move certain ways. Like, I talk with my hands, as you can tell, and like using that for a specific role or not using it, depending on it. I'd love to start exploring that and getting more into my body. Yeah, that's a big one. And I think in speaking towards that, I'd say your body's like an instrument, and for actors, it's like we're constantly using it. So I just want to learn different ways I can use it. My voice, my stillness is something I've been trying to focus on a lot for film, because you catch everything behind a camera. And knowing that, especially someone who has worked behind the scenes, it's had me kind of change the way I look at acting. Focusing on the things that are going to be seen and not necessarily what you might do on a stage. So that's a lot, but there's so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of like continuous improvement, right?
Yes.
Those things take time, reflection, practice. And it seems like you have a really good head on your shoulders, and you're very introspective and self-confrontational, like a healthy way, where you're always trying to improve your craft. And I think you're going to do really great things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So before we go, tell us about this play that you're doing over the summer. Tell us about any upcoming projects.
So I did the conservatory at Black Box last year, and my goal going into it was to help it get me into the theater scene, because I felt like, for one, theater companies are investing in you when they give you a contract. They're trusting you with their work for a period of 4 months, 3 to 4 months usually. And so I felt like I needed to have this experience in order to be even considered by theater companies, especially in Chicago, where theater is a very big deal, and the scene is kind of a close-knit community and can feel sometimes like a steel vault, like trying to break into it. And luckily I was able to, so I signed with Gray after that, and they got me this audition for American Players Theater. American Players Theater is in Spring Green, Wisconsin. It's 80 to 100 acres of just wilderness and theaters. They have an outdoor theater called the Hill, and then an indoor theater called the Touchstone. And they do plays and repertory. They do Shakespeare, and as well as contemporary and plays that are written in-house as well. So the audition that I got was for The Death of Chuck Brown, which is a play that they're premiering out there. And I was fortunate enough, they are trusting me to originate one of the roles in this play. And because they do plays and repertory, the contract also includes me going out and doing Shakespeare as well. So I'm going to be cast as the son in The Death of Chuck Brown. This play is basically about, it takes place in 2012, Washington, D.C., in the midst of gentrification in the city. and my character's name is Prince, and my father is Kofi, and he owns this barbershop. And the neighborhood is actively being gentrified, and my father wants to sell his barbershop. And my character has been protesting all the gentrification in the neighborhood. And so it's just about that relationship with gentrification, this father-son relationship. And so I'll be doing that starting in June, and that'll be running until September. And I will also be in A Midsummer Night's Dream. I'll be playing one of the fairies. They have like an ensemble of fairies, so I'll be doing that. And that's running from June until August. And then I'll be understudying in A Winter's Tale. And I'll be playing multiple parts if I go on for those. But yeah, it's a 5-month thing. I leave out April 29th, and I come back on October 5th. So it's a way for me to go and just immerse myself in theater. So yeah, and other than that, so I've been fortunate enough to work with John Ballion since we did that first film together, and he is currently editing his newest film, which is I Know You Saw It Too, which I don't think there's a release date yet, but in the coming months it should be coming out. But also with festival submissions and all of that, I don't know if it's actually going to be available for viewing yet, but I Know You Saw It Too, that one.
Awesome, John. Well, thank you so much for taking the time with us. I really, really do admire your approach to the craft, and I think that, I feel like if we were to revisit you and like come post theater for the next 5 months,
yeah.
like you're probably going to be an entirely different person as an actor, and I think you're heading in the right direction, man.
Thank you.
And and I hope we can work together.
Oh,
soon.
absolutely. I hope so, and I look forward to it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
I appreciate y'all having me.
All right. Great.